Yeah, it should work. All right, section 3. Why does a society provide public goods? This will probably be the most exciting section of your life. So hang on. Here we go. Providing public goods. Why does a society provide public goods? So what is a public good? Let's start with that. What is a public good? Public good is a good or service where consumers pay individually and exclude those who do not pay. So these are projects that don't make sense on the private sector, meaning that it doesn't make sense for all you and your neighbors to build your street in front of your house. There's not enough incentive there for that. Or paving a street out in the country somewhere. That doesn't mean there's no incentive for anyone there except maybe the farmer that lives out there or maybe someone traveling through. So we have these public goods that are out there that are funded by either the federal, the state, or local government. So property taxes on the house that you live in, that money is used for public goods within your city. The state highway system, that is for all the citizens there. And then the federal military bases, whatever it might be, is a public good as well. So usage of public good does not determine tax price, and the usage does not reduce the benefit of public goods. So what does it mean by that? The usage of public goods. If you commute into the Twin Cities every day, your tax price doesn't go up. It stays the same for everyone when it comes to budgeting of that. Usage does not reduce the benefit of public good. You go to the library, it doesn't reduce the benefit if you go or not. The benefit's going to stay the same. So it does not determine tax price and not reduce the benefit of public goods. So anything, roads, parks, schools, libraries, fire departments, school lunches, all this does not determine tax price, does not reduce the benefit of public good. So the public sector is parts of the economy that involves government involvement. So your local police officers, to the fire department, to the librarian at the library, to some hospitals that are public, those are all public workers. Public school worker, public school teacher. The word public is, again, any transaction that includes the government. When you hear the terms private sector versus public sector, private sector means there is no government involvement. Public sector is there is government involvement. So characteristics of it. So private sector, no government involvement. Individuals and businesses are involved with that. This is why we have public goods. Things that have no incentive for the private sector. Private sector has minimal incentive to produce public goods. And this is where it gets really difficult. This is why we have referendums. Now, there was no referendum for the brand new Viking Stadium downtown. And if you live in that area, and if you don't even watch football, well, there's no incentive for you to be a part of that. But since part of tax money was put towards that, it would have been a public good when it comes to it. Anyone been to the stadium this past season? Yeah? Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing stadium. A lot of love and hate out of that stadium this year. Especially on the economy side of how much taxes and things go when it comes to that. All right, so what do we call usually these public goods that are funded through taxes? Well, it's usually known as infrastructure. So this would be the highway system. This would be roads and bridges that are out there. This would be light rail. There's a service called Amtrak, which is a national railroad system that we have that you can actually go on a train to go from large parts across the U.S. I haven't been on an Amtrak train before. Nobody. Yeah, most people don't use it when it comes to it. It's kind of a dying industry when it comes to that. But that would be a public good in infrastructure. And here's kind of the two key goals when it comes to this public good, this infrastructure. Less, each individual is less than the cost and each would have to pay for providing privately. Also, the benefit to society are greater than the total cost. So this light rail that they put in downtown, it wouldn't make sense for the individuals because there's not enough people that ride it for it to sustain itself. It actually, the light rail receives money each year, known as subsidized money, to be able to make light rail operate. Has anyone been on the light rail? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so a few of us. I have 2. Now it's used heavily when there is a game downtown, when there is a concert downtown, but throughout the day, it usually doesn't get used as much. So it wouldn't make sense to tax each person that uses it. And then the benefit to society are greater than the total cost. So if it's a public good that's losing money each year, if it's creating a greater good, that is considered okay. Now that's why the private sector would not be okay with that, because if it's losing money, we need to cut this thing off. So it lowers the cost for each individual, and same thing with that. That's why if you don't use your local library, they don't charge people to go to the library when it comes to that. Has anyone been to the library in the last year? 1, 2. Wow, this is actually pretty good. Usually I get like 2 hands. So
I like go to the library for DVDs.
well, there you go. It has a service that is available for you. All right, the problem with these public sector jobs or public sector projects is we have the free rider problem. Someone who doesn't want to pay, but who just freeload. We all know who these people are, especially at lunchtime, or you go out to eat. Oh, I forgot my wallet, or I forgot my purse. Can you spot me? I'll pay you back. They're not going to pay you back. They're a free rider problem. So if you recognize any of these names that are down here, Will Perdue, Dickie Simpkins, Luke Walton. Each of these players have rings, NBA championship rings. Will Perdue has 4, Simpkins has 3, and Luke Walton, I think he has 2 or 3. They barely played in the NBA, but they have more rings than players that are superstars when it comes to this. They're part of the free rider problem. Only reason Luke Walton made the NBA is because of his dad. Now I know he's a coach of the Lakers, but I don't know. Anyone Luke Walton fan? Good. Just making sure. Free rider problem. You're going to find this when you go to college. If you bring a car with you to college, free riders are going to be your best friend. Oh, you're going out? You're going to Walmart? You're going to the store? Can I come with you? You know, they don't want to pay any gas for the car, but they will constantly ask you for it. I will admit, when I was in college, I didn't have a car, and so, but I had good friends that had them, so there wasn't an issue there. And usually the freshmen were the easy ones to get a ride with if I really needed to borrow a car anyways. But the free rider problem that is out there. Same thing with public work. So market failures. Again, it has to be done. It has to be funded publicly, because if it's not, it's a market failure. So for those who live out in urban areas, there's no way they could afford their own streets out there. If it's not used very often, it would fail. It would make no sense for the private sector to be able to afford something like this. So road building would become failures. Until we have cars that fly or float or hover, road building will continue to do this. I forgot what state it is. There's a certain state that has a company out there that's actually starting to look into the idea of flying vehicles. You would not need a road system anymore. You could You can fly within your state. If you live way up in Duluth, you'd still come to school here. It's a 30-minute commute or whatever. I mean, that'd be pretty amazing when it comes to this. So, world building producers only provide scenarios. All right, so with every public sector good that is out there, or private sector, there's something called externalities. These are kind of like the secondary results of something that is out there. They're either positive or negative. And we'll go over a couple of scenarios when it comes to this. We're almost there. Externalities. If we were to privatize the highway system, the only way that would be able to exist is if we had polls when it came to things. So you go every quarter mile or mile, you'd have to pay a fee when it comes to that. So it's definitely better if it's private or public sector there. All right, so externalities could be someone is smoking their e-cig or cigarette. Externality is that you're walking by and now you have to breathe it. That would be a negative externality. Sugary drink. My kids go over to my parents' house and they give them pop. Negative externality when they get in the car. Now we got to deal with their hyperness. So those different things that are out there. All right, so let's look at some fictional externalities, okay? Walsh Computers. Let's say we have this computer program company. They have a service for kids after school where they can come in, learn about computer science, learn how the computers operate. As a result, those kids now develop this knowledge, and the positive externality is that their human capital is increasing, and now they can go out, they're more prepared to go out and to fulfill a job better. And Walsh Computers hopefully helps that these kids will return to them once they graduate from college, and now they have someone that they've been training from the very beginning. If you live on a street that has a foreclosed home, no one lives there, usually that house is not going to be taken care of. The yard is going to be a disaster, and then the house value is going to drop in that neighborhood or on that street. But as soon as someone comes in and buys that house that's been foreclosed on, they're going to fix it up, either get a renter in there or they'll live there themselves. The positive externality of that is now the value of the street will increase. No one has to look at that eyesore of a house anymore, and hopefully they're friendly neighbors when it comes to that. So positive externality. Well, what about some negative externalities? What movie is that from? Shrek. Good. So when they have the scene at the beginning, they're zoomed in on that little cottage. That is, the externality is that, oh, it's peaceful and that, but then when it zooms out, it has this massive pollution manufacturing going on. The negative externalities of that pollution is it hurts, the environment, also people that live in that area. No one lives in that area actually as a result of that, and things are not as well as they could be. If you go down towards Cottage Grove, or if you go towards down 52, and if you're heading toward Hastings, they have a coke refinery that is out there. You don't see houses right next to the coke refinery, and that's because of pollution. They'd probably have a bunch of tumors and cancer and different things that would develop as a result of that. That's a negative externality when it comes to that area. So you got your first apartment, you're excited, you worked all week, you come home, and you're about to go to bed, and all of a sudden you start hearing accordion music. It's Mr. Fogler next door having an accordion party. He's just having a great time. He's playing it up with him and his buddies, and as a result of that, you can't go to sleep. That's a negative externality. So you're going to be pounding the walls, screaming, and complaining to the landlord when it comes to that. These are negative externalities. Well, what about as far as a government level? Education-wise, the more we educate the next generation, students, the positive externality is that we'll have more law-abiding citizens, more citizens that can contribute to society, and as a result of that, we'll see externality, we'll see growth. Pollution, on the other hand, hurt the air quality, things that are like that. We have programs that are designed to stop as much as we can that. Gas prices go down. Everyone wants to buy an SUV. As a result, we have more gasoline that is consumed. All right, last slide. Government-driven or market-driven solutions that are out there. So, more strict. What is a better way for the government to regulate something? Is it to more strict regulations, or is it more incentives? And this is a question they ask. How do we drive down the obesity rate in elementary students? And that's a question that is being asked. How do we do that? Do we just force carrots down the mouths of these students? Open up, we're going to force you to eat these, or do we throw an incentive out there? Kind of with your homework. What do we do? Okay, late policy is if you don't have it in on time, it's 50%. That's a strict regulation. But what would be an incentive that we could use instead when it comes to this? They both work to a point. Now, more regulation, people grumble about it, but incentives, not enough people think there's enough incentive there to be able to participate when it comes to this. In New York, they're having a problem with plastic foam for carry-out things for food or cups. So they put a ban across the city because the amount of trash they're developing is hurting it. But could there be a program instead that could really help that? New Jersey, they actually, I don't know if the article is true or not, but it was interesting to read. The trash man actually checks your recycle bin to make sure that it's actually recycled items in there. And if you don't, you're fined. They give you a fine for it if they find trash or whatever in it. So government-driven or market-driven solutions, what is the better one for this? All right, I'm going to stop this one here.